รือชมถ่ายทอดสดผ่าน True ID ช่อง ID Station ติดตามรายละเอียดที่ Facebook Techsauceเมื่อ 5G มาช่วยพลิกโฉมอุตสาหกรรมไทยให้ก้าวล้ำไปกว่าใครมาร่วมติดอาวุธ SME สู่การเป็นผู้นำด้วยเทคโนโลยีที่งานสัมมนา 5G True 5G Tech Talk by Huawei ASEAN ACADEMY ฟังคำแนะนำจากผู้เชี่ยวชาญทั้งไทยและต่างชาติจาก6วงการธุรกิจที่จะมาให้ความรู้สลับสับเปลี่ยนทุกเดือนร่วมเปิดมุมมองเพื่อยกระดับธุรกิจกับงานสัมมนาออนไลน์ครั้งยิ่งใหญ่แล้วมาสัมผัสเทคโนโลยีของจริงได้ที่งาน True 5G World Tech X มาร่วมสัมมนาออนไลน์ผ่าน True B Room หรือชมถ่ายทอดสดผ่าน True ID ช่อง ID Station ติดตามรายละเอียดที่ Facebook Techsauceเมื่อ 5G มาช่วยพลิกโฉมอุตสาหกรรมไทยให้ก้าวล้ำไปกว่าใครมาร่วมติดอาวุธ SME สู่การเป็นผู้นำด้วยเทคโนโลยีที่งานสัมมนา 5G True 5G Tech Talk by Huawei ASEAN ACADEMY ฟังคำแนะนำจากผู้เชี่ยวชาญทั้งไทยและต่างชาติจาก6วงการธุรกิจที่จะมาให้ความรู้สลับสับเปลี่ยนทุกเดือนร่วมเปิดมุมมองเพื่อยกระดับธุรกิจกับงานสัมมนาออนไลน์ครั้งยิ่งใหญ่แล้วมาสัมผัสเทคโนโลยีของจริงได้ที่งาน True 5G World Tech X มาร่วมสัมมนาออนไลน์ผ่าน True B Room หรือชมถ่ายทอดสดผ่าน True ID ช่อง ID Station ติดตามรายละเอียดที่ Facebook Techsauce ช่วยพลิกโฉมอุตสาหกรรมไทยให้ก้าวล้ำไปกว่าใครมาร่วมติดอาวุธ SME สู่การเป็นผู้นำด้วยเทคโนโลยีที่งานสัมมนา 5G True 5G Tech Talk by Huawei ASEAN ACADEMY ฟังคำแนะนำจากผู้เชี่ยวชาญทั้งไทยและต่างชาติจาก6วงการธุรกิจที่จะมาให้ความรู้สลับสับเปลี่ยนทุกเดือนร่วมเปิดมุมมองเพื่อยกระดับธุรกิจกับงานสัมมนาออนไลน์ครั้งยิ่งใหญ่แล้วมาสัมผัสเทคโนโลยีของจริงได้ที่งาน True 5G World Tech X มาร่วมสัมมนาออนไลน์ผ่าน True B Room หรือชมถ่ายทอดสดผ่าน True ID ช่อง ID Station ติดตามรายละเอียดที่ Facebook Techsauceเมื่อ 5G มาช่วยพลิกโฉมอุตสาหกรรมไทยให้ก้าวล้ำไปกว่าใครมาร่วมติดอาวุธ SME สู่การเป็นผู้นำด้วยเทคโนโลยีที่งานสัมมนา 5G True 5G Tech Talk by Huawei ASEAN ACADEMY ฟังคำแนะนำจากผู้เชี่ยวชาญทั้งไทยและต่างชาติจาก6วงการธุรกิจที่จะมาให้ความรู้สลับสับเปลี่ยนทุกเดือนร่วมเปิดมุมมองเพื่อยกระดับธุรกิจกับงานสัมมนาออนไลน์ครั้งยิ่งใหญ่แล้วมาสัมผัสเทคโนโลยีของจริงได้ที่งาน True 5G World Tech X มาร่วมสัมมนาออนไลน์ผ่าน True B Room หรือชมถ่ายทอดสดผ่าน True ID ช่อง ID Station ติดตามรายละเอียดที่ Facebook Techsauceเมื่อ 5G มาช่วยพลิกโฉมอุตสาหกรรมไทยให้ก้าวล้ำไปกว่าใครมาร่วมติดอาวุธ SME สู่การเป็นผู้นำด้วยเทคโนโลยีที่งานสัมมนา 5G True 5G Tech Talk by Huawei ASEAN ACADEMY ฟังคำแนะนำจากผู้เชี่ยวชาญทั้งไทยและต่างชาติจาก6วงการธุรกิจที่จะมาให้ความรู้สลับสับเปลี่ยนทุกเดือนร่วมเปิดมุมมองเพื่อยกระดับธุรกิจกับงานสัมมนาออนไลน์ครั้งยิ่งใหญ่แล้วมาสัมผัสเทคโนโลยีของจริงได้ที่งาน True 5G World Tech X มาร่วมสัมมนาออนไลน์ผ่าน True B Room หรือชมถ่ายทอดสดผ่าน True ID ช่อง ID Station ติดตามรายละเอียดที่ Facebook Techsauce
วัสดีค่ะทุกท่านยินดีต้อนรับเข้าสู่ True 5G Tech Talk sponsored by Huawei ASEAN Academy EP ที่ 3 Retail 5G พลิกโฉมประเทศไทยโดยผู้เชี่ยวชาญนวัตกรรมด้านคุณภาพชีวิตค่ะพบกันอีกเช่นเคยนะคะกับดิฉันชาวรัตน์ยงจิรนนท์หรือปูเป้รับหน้าที่เป็น MC ดำเนินรายการในวันนี้ค่ะวันนี้ agenda ของเราจะมารวบรวม Talk Session ทั้งหมด 3 รูปแบบค่ะจะมี Keynote Fireside Chat และ Panel Discussion มาให้ทุกท่านได้ร่วมรับชมโดยทางเรานะคะได้รับเกียรติจากสปีกเกอร์ผู้มีความชำนาญและเชี่ยวชาญด้าน Retail มาช่วยตอบคำถามและไขข้อสงสัยต่างๆเกี่ยวกับเทคโนโลยี 5G กับระบบการค้าปลีกในประเทศไทยของเราค่ะในวันนี้นะคะagendaของเราจะมีทั้งหมด2 session แรกก็จะเริ่มเร็วๆนี้นะคะประมาณบ่ายโมง5นาทีและก็จะสิ้นสุดประมาณบ่ายโมง55นาทีค่ะคือเป็น Keynote และ Fireside Chat จากคุณ Reynazran Royono Founder and Chief Executive Officer of Snapcart and former head of Modern Retail Business Unit of P&G ซึ่ง session นี้นะคะก็จะเป็นภาคภาษาอังกฤษ session ถัดไปก็จะเริ่มประมาณบ่าย2นะคะแล้วก็จะสิ้นสุดประมาณบ่าย2:50 นาทีนะคะคือเป็น panel discussion และ Q&A ซึ่งเราก็จะมีทั้งภาษาอังกฤษกับภาษาไทย speaker ของเราก็คือคุณ Axel Winter Chief Digital Officer of Siam Piwat Group and คุณ Sulabh Dhanuka Head of International B2B Business True Digital Group ค่ะซึ่งทั้งหมดนี้นะคะของ panel discussion แน่นอนเราก็จะมีโพลให้ท่านผู้ชมมีส่วนร่วมในการตอบคำถามต่างๆและระหว่างการพูดคุยทั้ง session แรกกับ session 2นะคะถ้าเกิดท่านมีข้อสงสัยอะไรและอยากจะถามคำถามก็ส่งได้เลยนะคะในแชทนะคะเราก็สามารถที่จะดึงคำถามของคุณได้และมาถามให้กับสปีกเกอร์ของเราสดๆเลยค่ะและเราก็จะปิดท้ายกับรับอัพข้อมูลต่างๆที่เราได้รับกันในวันนี้ด้วยนะคะโอเคเราเริ่มเลยนะคะกับเซสชั่นแรกของเราซึ่งเซสชั่นแรกของเราก็จะเป็น Keynote และ Fireside Chat กับคุณ Reynazran Royono หรือคุณเรย์เป็น Founder and Chief Executive Officer of Snapcart และ Former Head of Modern Retail Business of P&G ที่จะมาแบ่งปันข้อมูลและประสบการณ์การนำเทคโนโลยี 5G มาบูรณาการเข้ากับระบบการค้าปลีกผ่านเนื้อหาการนำเสนอเกี่ยวกับการเปลี่ยนแปลงและผลประโยชน์ที่เกิดขึ้นหลังการบูรณาการค่ะท่านผู้ชมจะได้รับข้อมูลดังกล่าวอีกทั้งได้รับรู้แนวคิดความเป็นไปได้ของการเปลี่ยนจากการนำเทคโนโลยีและนวัตกรรมใหม่ๆเข้ามาช่วยพัฒนาและส่งเสริมการเพิ่มโอกาสต่างๆให้กับธุรกิจค้าปลีกในประเทศไทยค่ะโอเคค่ะดังนั้นเดี๋ยวฉันขอเรียนเชิญนะคะคุณ Reynazran Royono เลยค่ะ
Hello. Hi, everyone. So thanks so much. Hi, my friends in Thailand. Ray here. I'm the founder and CEO of Snapcart. First of all, thank you for the opportunity today for me to share more about our views related to the current unfortunate situation of the COVID-19 pandemic and how that impact brands and consumers, as well as to give our observations on how 5G will play an important role to help provide remedies for brand engagements to consumers. So let me share my screen for you to see what are the things that I'm going to share today. Okay. So before I start with the topic, allow me also to introduce a bit about Snapcart because we're a company that is more focused on analytics as well as brand engagements. And I purposely put COVID-19 bump as one of the topic because that's going to be relevant to the end of the presentation itself. So Snapcart is a deep tech company where we focus on developing automations for brands to engage to the consumers in a holistic way by providing services that covers data, research, and promotion capabilities. The company started in 2015 with a stronghold in Southeast Asia, primarily in Indonesia and the Philippines. We partnered with technology companies as well as more than 100 brands as clients in the region. Now, talking about COVID-19, which is something that is already integrated into our daily lives now after more than 1.5 years living with the notorious virus, there are a couple of changes happening around us. So the first one, of course, is the change in our activities, where more and more people are becoming more aware in healthy living and that outdoor exercises are becoming a trend. Long gone the gym exercises due to the fear of being infected by the virus indoors. Hence, there's a good rise of health wearables, vitamins purchases, and everything related to health in the region. And humans need connections, right? It requires connections. And due to the limited social activities imposed by the governments across Southeast Asia, having pets is now considered as a really comfortable alternative. I myself, for example, has adopted 2 poodles during the pandemic to keep my wife and myself company. Now, I used to be based in Thailand for 2 years back in 2007, 2009. And, coming from a country from Indonesia where we usually hug and kiss when we meet family and friends, or at least shake hands as a professional courtesy, the Thai way to greet people is seen as a bit awkward for me back then. But now, that is the common way to greet people. You bow, you say hi, and that's something that is spreading like a virus. Video conferencing in business becomes the norm. Usually, business partners would prefer to have a face-to-face interaction, and that is not the case anymore due to the COVID-19 situation. Whenever our team at Snapcart need to go to have discussion with a client, instead of inviting us to their office, our clients would share a Zoom link instead. And that's something that is already common across businesses. Tourism definitely is not doing well due to the lockdowns in multiple countries. Many countries require isolations, which increase huge costs for tourists. And at the same time, due to the high risk, this is something that most people would avoid. And of course, tourism is just an example of the hardest hit industry. But as you all know, there are other industries impacted heavily. Now, I'm a big fan of a comedy show called The Big Bang Theory, and there's this character called Dr. Sheldon Cooper, who is super OCD and a clean freak. I used to laugh at the character, and ironically, because of COVID-19, I've become that same persona as Dr. Sheldon Cooper. And I do believe that this is now the same trait as most people in this session, in this event. Jobs are lost due to COVID-19 due to the budget cuts in multiple industries. And this cut across not just in startups like Snapcart, but also in large corporates, especially in industries mostly affected by COVID-19. And last but not least, spending is also affected hugely, where consumers are now focused in buying necessities, lowering down other non-essential needs. Hence, the overall consumption becomes lower. So then the question to all of us, with the vaccines deployed, I myself has finished my 2nd jab of vaccine a few weeks ago, for example. Are we safe yet? Do we see consumer behaviors to go back to normal? Or will there be a new normal that we need to live with? Now, to answer that, let me flesh out some of the key information slides related to the key changes that would likely to stay, at least in the next 2 years. And with the use of technology, this might be a permanent scenario most brands and retailers need to live with. Now, the first one is the behavior of shorter distance traveling. And I guess this is something that is common across consumers. Lockdowns especially are forcing people to stay at home. Hence, most people would buy products from nearby stores, especially for groceries or online. Store visits are avoided, but when necessary, the closest stores will be the consumer's ultimate choice. But this gives an opportunity for brands related to how brands can leverage the increasing screen time of consumers due to the stay-at-home situation where consumers are using their mobile phones more than ever. So what would be the medium for brands to reach consumers now through technology? Instead of just brand awareness, can brands convert purchases as well? The second behavior is a foundational fact where consumers prioritize what categories they would purchase. Food and beverage will be the key essential products, but to lower down boredom, home entertainment as a category also increases. Now, due to the work from home policies from a lot of companies, home office setup also increases. So a lot of categories that are intended to be supplementary is also increasing. Now, the increases of the non-essential categories like electronics, home office, equipments, and others, however, also made consumers aware that they need to carve out some of their spendings and be very frugal in how they consume until everything is back to what it used to be. So how would brands that are not considered essential will be able to pivot and reposition their values to consumers? How can, let's say, cosmetic companies be seen as something to be prioritized by female professionals when most people use masks in business environment or mostly are doing video conferencing? Now, the third behavior relates more towards how consumers prioritize the categories and the benefits the categories give, rather than being loyal to a brand. So the problem is not for the negatively impacted brands alone. The positively impacted ones also have issues because of COVID-19. So let me share what I mean by that. Now, the surge of consumption in these brands caused out of stock in the stores, while ensuring supply of those products by increasing is becoming super costly due to the workforce restrictions in factories. Now, at the same time, if this is not solved, the smaller brands, the challengers, are ready to be substitutes in those essential categories. So brands need to be more updated on what's going on the shelves to ensure their supply is sufficient and prevent switching, and make sure that their brands are part of the shopping list of the consumers. So with all of those business questions shared based on the three key behavioral changes of consumers, brands should utilize technology to ensure they would be able to manage the end-to-end consumer journey. It is essential for brands to have real-time understanding on consumers' behavior, how categories or brands are shifting in the market, and that's something that can be tackled through data crowdsourcing and online survey platforms. Now, partly online surveys can also help brands and retailers understand supply challenges across markets, though this will not answer 100% of the business questions. Audience targeting becomes a crucial differentiator between good advertisers and so-so advertisers, leveraging IoT, profiling of consumers, mobile apps, to ensure that brands can convert consumers to purchase and ensure brands are at the top of the shopping list, since it's no longer just about top of mind, but it's also about the top of the shopping list for most consumers. Now, an interconnected data profile targeting and promotion offerings will be the bread and butter for brands in the future. How to immediately react to competition and at the same time be proactive in driving loyalty to those consumers. In a way, brands do not have other choice but to optimize the possible technology angles to reach out to consumers in the current situation. So this comes to the point of the question on how 5G is becoming even more essential during the COVID-19 pandemic. We are seeing applications of high-tech approaches in both the retailers and the brands. So let me share some of those use cases in the slide that you're seeing. So from the retailer's perspective, having a simple way to guide the consumers in the stores through the utilization of mobile apps, helping consumers in their wayfinding to get to the products that they want to buy as quickly as possible becomes something that is very necessary. This is something that Amazon Go grocery is doing. The amount of time for shoppers to spend in the stores should decrease significantly, hence the overall processes should be further automated through IoTs. while at the same time ensuring that their shopping experience is something that will not be sacrificed, especially in a more premium categories. Now, as well as the ability for retailers to identify shoppers' persona through image detection in the stores and be able to push, let's say, offers, promotions, will also be a good differentiator for retailers across the world. And to top all of that, the ability of the retailers to drive an O2O approach in their marketing and sales capabilities, which includes e-groceries, be it by leveraging an aggregator like what Instacart is doing in the US, for example, or like what Happy Fresh is doing in Southeast Asia. Also, as an alternative with enough scale, retailers can opt to provide direct deliveries to consumers themselves. Now, on the brand side, aside from the obvious mobile e-commerce that will further accelerate, brands should innovate more through a targeted customer personalization and simplify customer experience in a more accurate way. With 5G, this will enable more IoT devices to be incorporated into customer profiling and connect more people and devices concurrently with a much higher quality, it's hyper-local and very granular data. By utilizing the real-time analytics and the endless applications that it might provide, which is exactly what Snapcart is trying to provide to our clients, digital ads will become more and more targeted. It will become more interactive due to the enhanced speed and image or video quality. And of course, it's going to be less expensive than before for consumers. Also, the possible application of augmented reality, virtual reality will help to enhance experience for consumers. How to visualize brands at home through 3D model imagery, for example, holograms maybe in the future, and a more advanced interactivity at home can not only drive awareness for brands, but also, more importantly, drive purchase conversions. Now, there will be more commercial partnerships that we're seeing in the future between electronic brands and packaged goods brands or FMCGs to leverage the multiple devices at home and enhance the remote way of shopping in the future. Now, the title of my presentation, if you remember, purposely used the word bump as I given you the heads up in the beginning of the presentation. What I want to drive home in today's sharing is that it depends on the business decisions on how to utilize the momentum, whether it is bad or good, to secure the future of your business. In the case of retail, though there are lots of setbacks that we are seeing in the marketplace due to the circumstances that we're experiencing right now, at the same time, there are doors open to savvy business entities, business owners who see huge opportunities that can be driven through the utilization of technology, and in this case, 5G. Acknowledging the changing consumer behaviors due to the COVID-19 situation, and be the leader of the possible innovations that can be done through 5G. So my advice is, instead of reminiscing what does the word bump mean to you, I encourage you to define your own bump, leverage 5G to the benefits for your business. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that insight, Ray. Definitely, I think you've touched a lot about what we were looking forward to seeing on our talk today. Let me just summarize a little bit in Thai for our viewers, right? So คุณเรย์นะคะเขาก็พูดถึงบริษัทของเขา Snapcart ซึ่งโฟกัสเข้าไปในเรื่องของ Analytics และก็ Consumer Behavior ค่ะโดยใช้ Deep Tech นะคะซึ่งเขาก็ตอนนี้คุยจากประเทศอินโดนีเซียอยู่นะคะแล้วก็นั่นคือตลาดหลักของเขาคืออินโดนีเซียกับฟิลิปปินส์ค่ะซึ่งคุณเรย์ก็บอกว่าแน่นอนนะคะทางอุตสาหกรรมค้าปลีกก็มีผลกระทบจากโควิด -19 ซึ่งทุกคนก็รู้อยู่แล้วนะคะไม่ว่าจะเป็นเรื่องของการซื้อของที่ใกล้บ้านมากขึ้นหรือว่าการที่ทุกคนเนี่ยเข้าไปหันดูหรือเข้าไปสนใจเรื่องสุขภาพมากขึ้นนะคะสำหรับคุณเรย์นะคะเขาบอกว่าแน่นอนคือเทรนด์ที่เราอาจจะต้องดูใกล้ๆกันนะคะก็คือว่าหนึ่งคือว่าการซื้อของก็จะอยู่ใกล้บ้านมากขึ้นนะคะเรื่องของ category หรือว่าสินค้าที่เป็นแ จัดเป็นแบบกลุ่มต่อไปเนี่ยอาจจะสำคัญกว่าแบรนด์นะคะซึ่งตอนนี้แบรนด์ก็ต้องฉวยโอกาสในการใช้เทคโนโลยีอย่างเช่น 5G เข้ามาช่วยเรียนรู้ผู้บริโภคมากขึ้นนะคะส่วนเรื่องของเทคโนโลยีในการให้ประสบการณ์มากขึ้นสำหรับ AR หรือว่าเรื่องของ interaction หรือ interactivity นะคะก็จะเกิดขึ้นมากขึ้นค่ะโอเคคุณ Ray I just tried my best to summarize as much as I could with what you said there. But thank you so much. I just want to tell you thank you so much for joining us again here. And for our viewers, if you're interested in giving or asking questions to Kun Ray, you can by putting your questions in the chat box นะคะสำหรับคำถามที่ผู้ชมอาจจะมีให้กับคุณเรย์นะคะท่านสามารถพิมพ์ได้ในแชทนะคะแล้วเดี๋ยวทางทีมเราก็จะเอาคำถามนี้นะคะมาถามคุณเรย์ค่ะ but first let me ask you the question of technology. You said just a little bit a minute ago in your keynote that we need to understand consumer behavior much faster than before. How can technology then help us understand consumer behavior at that rate that you're talking about?
Yep. Thanks for the question, Pupe. And I'll try to also give an example on how this is exercised or realized in real life by certain companies, right? So as connectivity speeds increase, so too will the number of wireless users and devices across the globe. This means increasing data collection as mobile connectivity reaches even deeper. And we're looking at even rural and remote areas and further into people's homes with the spread of IoT smart devices, right? So indeed, estimated by 2025, there will be around 75 billion IoT devices expected to be interconnected. So it's no wonder that 51% of the world's top marketers expect IoT to revolutionize the industry. And as a result, not only, and I'm just trying to link this with 5G, not only will 5G connect more people and devices, it will also collect higher quality, hyperlocal granular data, and all of which will give marketers more opportunities, to better understand personalization as well as the ability to understand customers' needs in real time. With 5G data transfer speeds, the possibilities for hyper-personalized experience that merge detailed customer data with real-time analytics are practically endless, right? And an example of this is there's this in the retail space. There's this company called AWM, Adroit Worldwide Media, and they are using a smart shelf that is working on a system that combines mobile apps with facial recognition software to track a shopper's gender, ethnicity, emotional state even, and then shoppers can upload receipts to the app, which is something that Snapcart is doing to get allocations for every items that they're trying to buy. And the system can also identify what's in their carts and make predictions about what else that they might need, right? So nearby kiosks will display ads or coupons for relevant products based on that data, like example would be spaghetti sauce or pasta, right? So that's just example on how data can be leveraged and what is the use case in real life by companies. Right?
Okay, so very, very good thoughts to think about here นะคะ I'm just going to switch a little bit to Thai for our viewers. คุณเรย์ก็พูดถึงว่าการใช้เทคโนโลยีอย่างเช่น 5G เนี่ยจะมีบทบาทสำคัญมากโดยเฉพาะในเรื่องของIoT นะคะหรือ Internet of Things ที่จะมาเกิดขึ้นเรื่อยๆนะคะแล้วก็ทำให้แบรนด์หรือว่าบริษัทเนี่ยสามารถเข้าถึงคือความคิดเห็นของผู้บริโภคให้มากขึ้นได้ง่ายๆขึ้นนะคะ But I think my question then is how are we in establishing the infrastructure to allow for this to happen? As we all know, we've been talking about 5G for a long time. And so it's like one thing to say, yeah, we're going to expect this to happen, but when you really have to implement it, in terms of Southeast Asia, do you see that increasing in pace in providing that structure?
Yeah, I believe so. So I think right now there's this good partnership between, the telco providers in the sense who are providing the network, the device manufacturers, electronic companies like Samsung, Huawei, and others that looks into exactly what the future needs and how to enable the infrastructure needed, right? So the investment needs to be concurrently happening across different companies in the sense. So, for example, would be if we are looking at telco advancements and also devices that are needed to leverage that 5G, then innovations needs to be again concurrently or in parallel is happening at the same time. And if it doesn't happen, then you will not be able to maximize what you can get out of it. Based on what we're seeing in the market, right? And at the same time, we're seeing innovations happening not from just the telcos and electronic companies, but also coming from the FMCG companies, the advertisers, to really drive what to leverage from an innovation perspective and how to connect brands and shoppers in a much more tangible manner and in real time, right? So I see that as something from a pace perspective is really increasing from the years that I've seen so far, and that's something that is great, especially in Southeast Asia. The advancements seems to be in line with what's going on with the rest of the world.
Okay, so definitely that's good news. But then when you talk about consumer behavior, I mean, there has been at the very beginning a lot of concerns about personal data, about giving data. I myself, I feel very freaked out sometimes when I'm using my smartphone or anything. Of course, I have to shop online, but sometimes there is concern about my information being used. Do you see that happening, or do you see less of it now because of the pandemic and people getting used to having their information shared like that?
I see. No, I think what's going on actually is more the opposite. I think people are more reluctant to share their data. And that's what's happening in major companies like Apple, Google, who are basically enforcing the ability for users to opt whether they want to share their data or not, right? So in the past, I think we're talking 10 years, 5 years, or even 2 years back, it's very easy for companies, electronic companies, Apple in a sense, Samsung, or even companies like Facebook and Google to kind of get data and just utilize it according to what their business needs are. That's not the case anymore right now. So with the latest update from iOS, for example, it's going to be very hard for advertisers to actually look into the in-depth data that they need to do targeting in the past. So that's something that Apple is kind of safeguard the consumers from to ensure that the user data is protected, right? So that's something that is going on right now, globally. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the data then becomes scarce. The data is still there. It's just that from a collection perspective, it's no longer related to more personal identification of the users, but we're looking into abilities to, let's say, create a way to target users based on lookalikes or based on personification or based on segments. So then the personal information is still protected, but at the same time, brands have the ability to utilize additional data points that are non-personal identification information, or what we call PII in the data world. But that's something that still will enable the brands to kind of drive home the targeting that is needed to target the consumers in the long run, right? So I think in a way that we're becoming more mature when it comes to data management. We're protecting data from the consumers and the user side. But at the same time, because of the richness of data is increasing, that doesn't dilute the ability for brands to target consumers eventually. Right? So that's
very interesting answer there. So I just wanted to summarize a little bit in Thai for our viewers here. เป็นคำถามที่แน่นอนต้องถามคุณเรย์นะคะคือว่า คือข้อมูลส่วนตัวของคนแล้วมีการเปลี่ยนแปลงหรือเปล่าในแง่ที่ผู้บริโภคเป็นห่วงมากขึ้นหรือเปล่าสำหรับ data ของเขาที่อาจจะถูกเอาไปใช้จากการซื้อของออนไลน์อะไรแบบนี้นะคะซึ่งคุณเรย์บอกว่าก็ความจริงแล้วตอนนี้คือก็มีความรู้สึกว่าผู้บริโภคก็ระมัดระวังมากขึ้นแต่นี่ก็ไม่ได้หมายความว่าข้อมูลส่วนตัวของเขาจะคือข้อมูลของผู้บริโภคไม่มีนะคะคือมีแต่อาจจะเอา data point ต่างๆเอามารวบรวมกันใหม่ซึ่งอาจจะไม่ได้เป็นดีเทลในขณะที่แบบเป็นส่วน personal เกินไปของผู้บริโภคแต่ว่าอาจจะออกมาเป็นแบบเป็น category ของผู้บริโภคมากขึ้นนะคะ Okay, so that's very interesting then. If you then take a look at the 5G technology as what we've just saying and talked about, can you walk through maybe perhaps an example of how data is taken from consumers, how you can track consumer behavior in e-commerce and how it's changed in the past year?
Hi, sorry, I was muted. I think this is related to, the roles of 5G technology and consumer behavior tracking, especially in e-commerce, as like what you said. And as you know, mobile e-commerce sales in Southeast Asia accounted for roughly 30% of the total retail e-commerce sales in 2020 right now. And that number is expected to climb, right? And despite the record growth, however, consumers are still experiencing significant issues while shopping online. Their biggest frustration stems from latency. For example, in a recent survey, if I'm not mistaken, around 42% cited that low-performing websites or apps are their largest disappointment. Right? Other major issues included, for example, too many steps in the buying process. There are checkout errors. There are missing items when they buy the products. So those are things that needs to be improved. So as networks speed up with 5G, zero latency will effectively eliminate the number one problem for mobile shopping. So that gives companies, marketers a brief window to prepare, of course, for the 5G environment, by streamlining shopping apps and improving the customer experience so they can cash in on the upcoming growth, right? And I give an example. There's a company called Wish. So they recently came up with a highly effective way to improve their customer experience. And they use it to build, right now, an $8 billion shopping app, right? Making it one of the most popular shopping apps in the world. The company's strategy was to ingest 17 billion consumer behavior events per day from multiple sources, be it apps, be it advertisers, be it IoTs, its websites. The resulting result for the app is a highly personalized shopping recommendation engine that delivers 95% relevance to the exact targeted consumer segment that they want to target. And of course, the company's conversion growth is multiplied. It's ultra multiplied because of this approach. So when 5G is ubiquitous, such huge data sets, high speed, real-time customer marketing interactions will become the norm. And it's not an exceptional case study anymore, right? So what Wish is doing right now will be reapplied to many apps and e-commerce players. Hence, it's going to become something that is normal. And that's why, innovation, growth in the future, and we're not talking about 5G, we're looking at more Gs in the future, right? And that's something that will definitely leverage the experience that the consumers need.
That's very interesting indeed นะคะก็เมื่อกี้นี้คุณเรย์ก็บอกว่าดิฉันก็ถามคุณเรย์ว่าแบบการเก็บข้อมูลโดยใช้ 5G ค่ะถ้าเกิดเราพูดถึง Retail Ecosystem ค่ะตอนนี้ขั้นตอนมีอะไรบ้างได้สังเกตอะไรบ้างนะก็คุณเรย์ก็บอกว่าแน่นอนคือตอนนี้คนเขาก็จะบ่นมากเลยเกี่ยวกับการมากช้าของระบบนะคะที่อาจจะเกิดขึ้นในแง่ของเทอมที่เขาเรียกว่า latency ที่อาจจะเกิดขึ้นเพราะฉะนั้นเนี่ยถ้าเกิดเรามีเทคโนโลยีอย่างเช่น 5G เข้ามาแล้วนะมันจะทำให้ทุกอย่างราบรื่นมากขึ้นและก็เร็วขึ้นแล้วก็ประสบการณ์ของผู้บริโภคก็จะดีขึ้นนะคะคุณเรย์ I just thought of another a point, and I really wanted to understand this more because I do shop online along with everybody else, as I mentioned. And one of the things that I feel that it's a bit different between shopping online and offline is that when you go to the store or when you go to the mall, you have that element of surprise. Like, you have that opportunity to see something that you might not have thought of buying, but then it's a surprise, it's a discovery. That's why people go shopping, right? Because they like that journey and that experience. Whereas then if you bring in technology and it's more catered to your tastes, it becomes a bit scary in the fact that all you see is basically everything that is catered to you. But do we run into the problem of that lack of surprise, that factor when it comes to using technology and shopping?
Yeah, so the answer to that would be no, and I think this is going to be the role of retailers in the future, right? So there will be a lot of questions related to, okay, what will be the future of shopping like? Will it be 100% online, or is it going to be also offline? So I believe the future of shopping will still be a balance between offline presence and online capabilities. So as you rightly said, the online capabilities basically push that relevant offers to you, hence discovery is not needed, it's less time consuming, but then at the same time you do want to discover new things, right? So a real life example, I'm a geek when it comes to collecting action figures, for example, like from comics and so on. So I recently went to a toy store. Of course, because of social distancing, it's easier for me to navigate looking for collectibles to purchase, right? Now, that experience that I have looking at huge statues of my favorite superheroes, some comic books that I can open and read, really drive the urge to spend more in that store. I might not purchase the products that very moment. As a matter of fact, some of the action figures need to be pre-ordered, right? So pretty much the purchase is still happening online. Now, what's interesting though is when I walk out from the store and go to my screen, suddenly the relevant action figures that I want to buy becomes quite apparent compared to before I go to the store. So what's happening is it seems that the offline stores are also collecting some information that might be derived from the activities that I'm doing in the store. But then, that discovery, that urge can also benefit, the shoppers to even spend more through that approach of O2O, right? Online, offline, offline, online. So again, without that offline in-store experience, I might not be motivated to purchase at the first place. And that's an experience that I believe online or technology might not be able to replace in the future. Right? So I think there are roles in the offline, online kind of perspective where a lot of the discovery kind of excitement is something that can be delivered from the offline experience. But when it comes to personalization, that's something that, offline also collects some data, as I said, but from the online side, there's a lot of permutations on recommendations that can be pushed to the user side in this sense. Right? So,
okay, that's very interesting ค่ะก็เมื่อกี้ถามคุณเรย์ว่าเฮ้ยตอนนี้คือทุกคนก็ช้อปปิ้งออนไลน์แต่ว่าอาจจะขาดความอะไรดีอะค่ะคือการที่จะได้สัมผัสกับสินค้าอื่นที่อาจจะไม่ได้อยู่ในอัลกอริทึมของตะกร้าของเราเองตอนที่เราช็อปออนไลน์นะคะท่านผู้ชมอาจจะเคยสังเกตนะตอนที่ช็อปออนไลน์ก็จะสังเกตว่าสินค้าที่เราจะเห็นที่จะ pop up ในสกรีนของเราก็ส่วนมากก็จะเป็นจากที่เราจิ้มไปค้นหาเองค่ะแต่ว่าคุณเรย์ก็บอกว่าต่อไปนี้ก็คงจะมีการผสมผสานระหว่างออฟไลน์กับออนไลน์โดยที่คุณอาจจะออกไปดูของที่ร้านอะไรอย่างเงี้ยค่ะและเสร็จแล้วนะคะก็ข้อมูลที่ได้จับมาจากร้านก็อาจจะปรากฏขึ้นมาในสกรีนของคุณตอนที่คุณไปค้นหาสินค้านั้นออนไลน์ค่ะสำหรับผู้ชมที่ อยากจะถามคำถามนะคะก็ยังถามได้นะคะขอเชิญชวนให้ทุกคนถามคำถามได้ในแชทนะคะ For those who are wanting to ask questions to convey please do we are waiting for your questions as always and we're excited to give them to Ray as he is speaking to us live here from Indonesia. All right, Kun Ray, we let's go to the back end of the retail ecosystem then. How is 5G going to impact the back end of the retail ecosystem?
I think the back end capabilities of retailers would evolve according to the experience and of course the 5G kind of capabilities in a sense and there are numerous 5G retail use cases centered around the customer as its nucleus. Right? One area that will be positively affected is the in-store customer experience. For example, touchless and contactless checkouts because that's needed right now because of the COVID situation. People tend to not want to touch surfaces. Utilizing AR, augmented reality, for product or brand information, and even wayfinding in the store. So I want to go to a diapers aisle. So how to get there in a fast manner, right? So all of those will be enabled by 5G. Another area is personalization, where retailers will be able to use advanced artificial intelligence or AI, machine learning, to personalize pricing and promotions in the store. So that personalized price, right now what you're seeing in the store is that it's one price to everyone going to the store. But it could be that in the future, pricing could be personalized based on that trip that you're doing as a consumer, right? And that will not be possible to be done if there's no 5G. Now that's more on kind of the in-store experience side, right? Now on the operation side, there are other 5G retail use cases that will, raise the bar for example, inventory and productivity. So as an example, real-time out of stock kind of monitoring, shelf replenishment automation, shrink reduction. So shrink is basically the number of gap between actual inventory and the number of inventory in the system, right? It can be caused by theft or missing stuff because of operation. So all of those can be made possible through 5G. And all of these use cases will use a combination of IoTs, right? Intelligent cameras, sensors, workforce and store efficiency are also going to be improved where 5G will have a huge impact. This will include use cases such as a planogram design. So on the shelf, how do you put the different products in a more enticing way for users to then purchase the product? Associate training through virtual reality and augmented reality is something that can be done also from a personal perspective, right? So there's a lot of things to be honest. I can talk days to kind of say and share examples. But I think the future is really, really bright.
I think that is very interesting. And I believe you when you say that you can speak on and on and on because it is something that you are doing and it is something that is happening as we're speaking there. And I just want to say, it definitely I can see that happening with that personalization pricing for consumers because everyone wants to feel that they're special, right? Everyone wants to feel that they got a really good deal. So definitely that is interesting there นะคะก็เมื่อกี้นี้เราก็พูดถึงว่าการเปลี่ยนแปลงเรื่องของแบบ ecosystem นะคะของ retail ที่อาจจะเกิดขึ้นได้จาก 5G นะคะก็คุณเรย์ก็บอกว่าแน่นอนมันอาจจะมีอะไรที่เราอาจจะไม่เคยได้ใช้เกิดขึ้นอย่างเช่นรูปแบบการซื้อของก็อาจจะเปลี่ยนไปนะคะก็อาจจะเร็วขึ้นนะคะหรือว่าอาจจะมีส่วนหนึ่งที่อาจจะไม่ได้สัมผัสสิ่งของหรือว่าร้านค้ามากขึ้นเพราะว่ามีคนที่อาจจะระวังเรื่องโควิด -19 นะคะแล้วก็ที่น่าสนใจที่คุณเรย์เขาพูดถึงที่น่าจะเอามาคิดนะคะก็คือว่าเราอาจจะใช้ 5G เพื่อที่จะทำให้ การตั้งราคาเนี่ยขายให้กับผู้บริโภคอ่ะให้มีความ personalization ให้เกิดขึ้นมากขึ้นคือหมายความว่าถ้าเกิดคุณไปร้านเนี่ยคุณอาจจะได้ดีลหรือว่าราคาเซลล์ที่แตกต่างกับคนอื่นก็ได้นะคะซึ่งอันนี้น่าสนใจจริงๆค่ะโอเคคุณเรย์ then when we talk about 5G being implemented now during COVID-19. You mentioned in your keynote that COVID-19 has impacted various sectors, whether it be the tourism sector or restaurants, retails, stores that haven't been able to transition to online here. Are you seeing are you seeing any support from 5G towards these sectors? How is 5G helping the retail businesses at this time?
Yeah, and I believe this is not yet happening, but I believe this will happen, right? Because 5G is relatively new, and not all retailers are able to evolve accordingly to the 5G kind of precipice, right? So that's something that we need to acknowledge for the time being. So a lot of the 5G experience is all about trying to ensure that users get more connectivity, users get higher speed, users get the ability to kind of just spend less time in the retail stores, and that's something that is happening in the US, for example, in Amazon Go, which is an example that I shared in the earlier slides that I've shared. But it's not yet happening in Southeast Asia, unfortunately. But in the future, I would be able to see how retailers are able to utilize that connectivity, speed, information that they can extract from the store, from the shoppers in the store, and then provide it back to different services and automations and offers and promotions for the shoppers. And that's something that will then drive a higher purchase need from the users, right? Because a lot of times right now, because of COVID, people don't want to spend time in the store. Hence, what they're doing is they might miss some of the products that they want to buy. And because of that, the stores are losing sales. Yeah. But at the same time, if they're if they're able to kind of create a way to ensure that the shoppers spend maximum 10 minutes in a trip, but then they would get 100% of all of the products that they're getting, which includes some of the examples that I shared related to wayfinding, personalization, or even in future pricing personalization, and so on and so on. That will improve the experience and definitely help the retailers go through the COVID-19 situation. So that's how we do it.
โอเคค่ะก็เมื่อกี้นี้ก็ถามคุณเรย์ว่าตอนนี้ณปัจจุบันนี้คือได้เห็นการใช้ 5G ที่จะเข้ามาช่วยเหลือเซกเตอร์ที่มีผลกระทบจากโควิด -19 หรือเปล่าในเรื่องที่อย่างเช่นในอุตสาหกรรมการท่องเที่ยวหรือร้านค้าที่อาจจะยังไม่สามารถที่จะเข้าออนไลน์ได้ท่านก็บอกว่าก็ยังอาจจะต้องรอสักพักนึงแต่ว่าสิ่งที่เราอาจจะเห็นได้ก็คือสิ่งที่เกิดขึ้นที่อเมริกานะคะซึ่งแน่นอนโครงสร้างเทคโนโลยีที่อเมริกาก็ได้พัฒนาเร็วกว่าบ้านเราแล้วก็เราก็เห็นว่ามีอย่างเช่น Amazon Go นะคะที่ให้ความสะดวกมากขึ้นกับผู้บริโภคที่จะเข้าไปในร้านค้าและใช้เวลาน้อยลงแต่ว่าในขณะเดียวกันก็ให้มีความ personalization ที่เกิดขึ้นนะคะก็คือว่าการใช้ข้อมูลของผู้บริโภคมากขึ้นให้ประสบการณ์ของเขาให้ดีขึ้นนะคะโอเคค่ะสำหรับคนที่มีคำถามก็ถามมาได้นะคะเพราะว่าเราก็รับคำถามให้กับคุณเรย์นะคะสดๆเลยนะคะ Ray, I have a question from the audience. For those who are watching us from your computer or home, you're more than welcome to ask a question to Ray about the retail industry and, of course, technology. Okay, so Ray, the question that we're getting here is, what is the most essential step for upgrading the retail system in Thailand?
I see. I think I would say that, and it's a typical answer, it depends, because there are a couple of business questions that need to be understood based on the priorities of the retailers themselves, right? So if the priority for the retailer is all about discovery, for example, then all of the things related to merchandising, IoTs will be one of the important things that needs to be done at that retail store. If the priority of the retailer will be purchase conversions and personalization, or maybe improving margins, right? So that personalized pricing kind of capabilities will be also important, right? But I think the first step is to really identify, okay, what is your business objective? What do you want to try to get out of it in terms of business result? Is it sales growth? Is it more margin? Is it more traffic to the store? Is it maybe developing an online offline capabilities because the retailer is not having it yet? So based on that business objectives, then you'll be able to kind of identify what kind of investments that you can do from a perspective of 5G utilization, right? So investment can be range. It can be in the form of the IoTs that you need to invest, like sensors and things. If that's too advanced, then you can think of how about creating an app that will improve the consumer experience, both online and also offline experience as well. And other things that you can think of, right? So there's no fixed formula on what is that first one that you need to kind of do. Of course, the easiest way, and I think that's going to be relatively important for retailers, is that capability of O2O. I think that's right now very important, where you're
O2O
able,
as in offline, online, right?
Exactly, the offline to online and online to offline kind of perspective, where you're able to drive an ecosystem to drive loyalty for users based on the data that you collect from the users, based on historical purchase of users, and then you can drive a lot of awareness and brand building and loyalty building through that ecosystem that you're building, right? And again, with the speed improved with 5G, the experience of having that online interaction and then going to the offline side, getting the data from the customers, and then go back to the online recommendation, those will be much more seamless in the future.
Very, very good thought there. I think that goes back to what you were saying, right? We kind of have to make our own path. I mean, be realistic about it, that, technology or the infrastructure might not be there yet, but at the same time, if you're going to prepare for the future, which you should do it carefully and learn from others, like, for example, the United States. So let me just summarize that in Thai just a minute for our viewers here นะคะขอสรุปเป็นภาษาไทยเล็กน้อยนะคือเมื่อกี้นี้มีคำถามจากที่บ้านถามว่าถ้าเกิดว่าจะอัปเกรดนะคะระบบการค้าปลีกในประเทศไทยเนี่ยจะอัปเกรดยังไงนะคะซึ่งคุณเรย์บอกว่ามันอยู่กับความต้องการของแต่ละแบรนด์หรือว่าแต่ละบริษัทนะคะคือโอกาสของเราตอนนี้คือว่าในระหว่างที่เรากำลังพัฒนา infrastructure ของเราในแง่ 5G หรือเทคโนโลยีอะไรอย่างเงี้ยค่ะเราก็สามารถที่จะไปดูเพื่อนบ้านของเราได้อย่างเช่นที่อเมริกาว่าเขาทำยังไงนะคะแล้วก็เราก็ต้องเข้าใจว่าแบรนด์ของเราต้องการที่ทำอะไรเป้าหมายของเราคืออะไรเราต้องการที่จะเพิ่มเซลล์หรือเปล่าเราต้องการที่จะเพิ่มทราฟฟิกเข้าให้ผู้บริโภคเข้ามาในร้านของเราหรือเปล่านะคะแล้วก็เลือกสินค้าหรือว่า product IoT หรือ Internet of Things ให้ดีที่สุดทำไงให้ได้ให้เราเห็นว่าเราสามารถที่จะมีทั้ง O2O ได้ให้เกิดขึ้นได้ในอนาคตสำหรับบริษัทของเราได้นะคะคือ offline online หรือ online offline ค่ะ Wow I think that was a very good answer. Right. I think a lot of people are probably thinking now of what is the potential future for them. So overall though, how do you think maybe Southeast Asia will differ from other regions when it comes to combining technology with e-commerce? Because like many things, right, there's consumer behavior or the way that we use technology is different from region to region.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I'll try to provide some extreme examples because one of the challenges that we face as a region will be geographical challenge in some of the countries, right? Because we do have a sizable part of what we call rural area, which is more remote. Even extremes will be Indonesia, Philippines, where you have dozens of thousands of islands. Hence, with e-commerce to cover most of the islands will be quite challenging, right? E-commerce right now, I give an example for Indonesia, will cover most of the main islands like Java Island and Sumatra Island. But then to go to the other islands will be quite challenging. So to give a perspective, from Jakarta, which is in Java Island, to go to the far east part in Papua, using a combination of land and sea kind of transportation, it might take 7 days to kind of deliver the goods, right? Because of this complexity of geographical is something that is, of course, challenging unless warehousing challenges are solved to expand to those other islands. And of course, this is not going to be an issue for countries like Thailand and Vietnam because it's mainly island connected. But then again, the remote area within that geographical sense is something that is still vast to cover, right? Now the other part that would be challenging or different is the fragmentation of retail landscape in Southeast Asia that is much more fragmented than countries like, say, Australia, where in Australia, 80% of the sales come from only 2 huge retailers there, right? So in Southeast Asia, you don't have that kind of contribution. You'll see multiple retailers contributing maybe 30-40% of total sales. So the fragmentation is much deeper. The competition will be much fiercer, definitely, when it comes to pricing, branding, and so on. And that for consumers, there are quite a few options that they can choose from in order for them to get the highest return as possible. So you can imagine that if each of the retailer in Southeast Asia have their own e-commerce, it's going to be also a little bit confusing for consumers in the sense, but at the same time, it's also a business opportunity for aggregators. Companies like Happy Fresh in Southeast Asia or Instacart in the US are doing that, where they aggregate that demand from the different retailers and create a branding proposition through an e-grocery service, right? So that's I think again the challenge is there definitely, but I think the growth rate that we're sees that there will be some kind of shift from the offline and online purchases. I'm not saying that it's going to be 100% because that's impossible. The offline retail will always be there, but then online will kind of complement that kind of services and approach.
Oh wow, that's very interesting. I'm not surprised actually that you said that, that the geography is a challenge and the fragmentation. But yeah, it is kind of a wild thing when you talk about retail here in Southeast Asia. It's very creative how people sell their goods and everything. I just wanted to summarize just a little bit for our viewers who are listening and maybe want to know more in Thai here that เมื่อกี้นี้ที่เราพูดถึงว่าภูมิภาคของ Southeast Asia จะแตกต่างกับภูมิภาคอื่นอย่างไรนะในแง่ที่ใช้เทคโนโลยีเข้ามาใช้ในอุตสาหกรรมค้าปลีกนะคะคุณเรย์ให้ประเด็น2อันที่น่าสนใจทีเดียวนั่นก็คือ1คือว่า geography ของเรานะคะคืออย่างเช่นถ้าเกิดเราเข้าไปดูในตลาดของอินโดนีเซียก็มีหลายเกาะเนาะเพราะฉะนั้นเนี่ยการขนส่งหรือการส่งของเนี่ยจะใช้เวลาที่แตกต่างกันไปอันนั้นคือ1อย่างที่อาจจะแตกต่างกับประเทศอื่นอย่างเช่นประเทศไทยที่อาจจะไม่ได้มีความยากลำบากในการส่งของแบบนั้นนะคะแต่ยังไงก็ตามนะคะก็มีความท้าทายอยู่ดีสำหรับบางจุดของแต่ละประเทศใน Southeast Asia ที่อาจจะยังไม่เชื่อมกับขนส่งแบบหรือมีการเชื่อมกับระบบขนส่งที่ดีนะคะแล้วก็อีกอันนึงที่น่าสนใจคือ fragmentation หรือว่าการแยกออกมาคือการที่มีรีเทลเลอร์แตกต่างกันไปค่ะอย่างเช่นถ้าเกิดเราไปดูประเทศออสเตรเลียเขาอาจจะมีประมาณ 2-3 เจ้าที่ส่งรีเทลออกไปนะแต่ในบ้านเราหรือว่าในบ้านของอินโดนีเซียก็อาจจะมีความหลากหลายเกิดขึ้นในการที่มีพ่อค้าหรือแม่ค้าเนี่ยขายของมากขึ้นในออนไลน์ซึ่งมันก็จะต้องดูอีกทีนึงค่ะแต่ยังไงก็ตามนะคะออฟไลน์ก็ยังถือว่าเป็นสิ่งที่สำคัญต่อการบริโภคสิ่งของค่ะคุณเรย์ I want to talk more but we don't have much time but I'd like to thank you again for giving us your time here. You are of course speaking to us from Indonesia. We're very privileged indeed to have this time together and the insights that you've given us in terms of how 5G and technology is going to be used in the retail industry is definitely a game changer for people who are listening. I think it'll probably spark a lot of ideas on how they can build their brands in the future. Thank you so much คุณเรย์ขอบคุณมากค่ะ
Thank you a pleasure สวัสดีค
โอ
รับ
เคค่ะ alright นะคะเราไปต่อสำหรับเซสชันถัดไปโอ้โหเมื่อกี้นี่คุยมันมากเลยนะคะกับคุณเรย์สำหรับเซสชันที่2นะคะเราจะมาพูดถึงเทคโนโลยีและเครื่องมือที่สามารถนำมาใช้เพื่อการพัฒนาและการบูรณาการระบบ 5G ในอุตสาหกรรมการค้าปลีกหรือวงการรีเทลค่ะอีกทั้งยังจะพูดถึงประเด็นพฤติกรรมของผู้บริโภคที่เปลี่ยนแปลงไปตามสถานการณ์ปัจจุบันอีกด้วยนะคะในเซสชันนี้ก็จะเป็น panel discussion และ Q&A เราได้รับเกียรติจากสปีกเกอร์ที่มีประสบการณ์ทั้งในด้านงานดิจิทัลและการค้ามาร่วมแบ่งปันความรู้กับเรานะคะซึ่งระหว่างที่เรามาคุยกันก็เราก็จะมีโพลให้ทุกคนมาร่วมตอบคำถามกันนะคะแล้วก็ถ้าเกิดมีคำถามก็สามารถพิมพ์เข้าไปในแชทได้เลยนะคะเรายินดีที่จะตอบคำถามของคุณค่ะตอนนี้นะคะขอเรียนเชิญแขกของเรานะคะคือคุณ Axel Winter Chief Digital Officer of สยามพิวัตร Group และคุณสุลาภ ตนุกา Head of International B2B Business True Digital Group ค่ะSwadika. Hello, everyone here. Thank you so much for joining us here on our program, Kun Axel and Kun Sulabh. Before we start, I just wanted to talk to our viewers a bit. We will be having a poll. Actually, we want to start the poll now before we start the questions because I want to give some time for the viewers to take part. Okay, เดี๋ยวเราจะมีโพลกันนะคะคือจะคุณสามารถสแกน QR code ตรงนี้ได้เลยนะคะแล้วก็ท่านก็จะเข้าไปในเพจนะคะที่จะมีคำถาม2คำถามค่ะคำถามแรกก็คือ which area in retail business are you interested in นะคะคุณสนใจธุรกิจค้าปลีกด้านไหนบ้างนะคะจะมี digitalization e-commerce และ platform retail innovation data insights and AI adoption warehousing and inventory management, customer experience, advertisement and promotion or A&P, supplier management, store layout optimization, workforce optimization or reduction or others. Okay, เชิญเข้ามาตอบคำถามได้เลยนะคะซึ่งตอนนี้เราก็มีคนตอบมาแล้วนะคะ The panelists, you can look on with this. Let's see our viewers here. We already have some answers. Okay, so the retail business that they're interested in. So maybe this will give some perspective to our panelists today in our talk. So 20% are interested in 16.7% is interested in workforce optimization reduction. Another is retail innovation. Majority is almost majority is data insights and AI adoption. And then there's the warehousing and inventory management, as well as customer experience. And what else? Store layout optimization. I think Kun Ray actually talked about that as well. In the first session, how 5G will come into play into changing the way that the stores are built นะคะ Okay คำถามต่อไปนะคะ The next question for a poll before we get to talking here is what are the common challenges players in retail business face นะคะอะไรคือความท้าทายที่คนทำธุรกิจค้าปลีกต้องเผชิญ So you have insufficient capital investment, lack of expertise, disjointed customer experiences, customer behavior change or user adoption, inventory management, and others. Okay, so let's see. We have some responses already. Some are saying inventory management. Others are saying lack of experience. Okay, that is understandable. And the other one that's taking majority is customer behavior change and user adoption. Okay. All right. So we'll go back to the polls later on during our talk นะคะก็เดี๋ยวเราก็จะกลับมากับคำถามทางโพลอีกทีนึงแต่ว่าโอเค เมื่อกี้นี่ preview because I wanted to bring some activity into the conversation before we start. But anyways, thank you for joining us, Kun Sulabh and Kun Axel. Before we start, I'll just give you an opportunity to introduce yourself briefly to the audience. Kun Axel?
Thank you very much. Actually, my pleasure to be here and have also this survey is quite interesting. It fits quite well what I have been and I'm working on. So as you introduced me, I work with CMPWA to drive new digital agenda, and also fortunately in the past had the opportunity to work with Central Group as well as Standard Chartered Bank. So I have a bit of a mixed banking and retail background, which is good because nowadays financial services and retail converge around the consumer in a sense. We're seeing this whole advent of crypto, which also adds to this. So it's quite interesting to see how all the industries are coming together into one.
Okay.
My background is more technology and digital building. I have done this. Actually, I was working with the first internet service providers in Thailand to open them up, to help open them up. And so I've always been in this type of industry.
So we're very lucky then to have someone like you who's been there from the start. Okay, Kun Sulabh, yes, a little bit more about you.
Yeah, Vadi Kap. So I'm Sulabh Dhanuka. Thank you for the introduction there. Currently, I head our international B2B business for True Digital Group. Right, of course, I'm sure everyone's familiar with the group and what we do. So currently we're bringing various industry 4.0 digital technologies, IoT-based technologies, pick your favorite buzzword, right, across various verticals across Southeast Asia. Retail is a very key focus area of ours, both online and offline. Of course, I'm sure we'll get into it. The current pandemic does impact, how things are moving in that front. But honestly, it is a very exciting time, and that's something that I'm leading and looking to bring innovative solutions. Prior to True Digital, I was with McKinsey, where my primary work was all in the digitalization, digital transformation space. So while it may not have been retail specific, a lot of the concepts, especially around the poll, I was seeing inventory management, supply chain management. These are relevant across various sectors, and I think there's a lot to learn from other industries, right? When it comes to demand forecasting, when it comes to warehousing, when it comes to logistics, we're seeing the growth of that through e-commerce in retail, but several other industries have dealt with it for a long time. So, so exciting to talk about this. But thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. Just a reminder to our audience, this will be in English, but we will of course have some Thai here and there นะคะสำหรับคนที่กำลังเพิ่งเปิดดูนะคะก็เราก็จะมีทั้งภาษาอังกฤษภาษาไทยผสมกันไปนะคะใน panel discussion ของเรา Okay, so I think the first question is, what is your take on technology and its role in the retail space, both in Thailand and overseas? I think since Axel has been in Thailand from the get-go, maybe perhaps you can give your view on how technology has changed the retail industry here in the country.
Well, that'd be quite a bit. I mean, let's say you go back a couple of years. Probably the most innovative thing was the new point of sale, and so you can imagine that really is from a technology point of view probably less critical at the time. And I think even actually maybe a couple of months back, I went to a Starbucks when it was open, and the cash register didn't work, no power, and they could write a handwritten receipt, and they give them money, and the coffee machine, out of some reason, worked. So to show you that the technology again is only really doubling down in the last 2 years, where a lot of things changed. Before that, they were also changed probably at a slower pace. I think it's what we're seeing since COVID, and I'm sure we're talking about this a bit later again. But since COVID came in, there has been quite a bit of an advent. I think what is there is we're seeing probably a network of digital businesses. And also traditional businesses digitizing, and they're finding multiple ways of collaborating. So we see, of course, you see True Money bridging the gap in, let's say, 7-Eleven being one example where the app and True Money, the integration in the store and also online is possible, which gives you a big boon. We're seeing AI. I think Sulabh mentioned that we're seeing AI being a significant driver, not only in the sales side, what we usually talk about in better targeting, better customer addressing, but also understanding inventory in the stores and in retail. Also plan at the supply chain, planning supply is an incredibly complex item and becomes now so complex with all of the touch points and channels on the sales and supply side that actually you really need a very sophisticated AI environment, merchandise planning and so on, to make this actually effective. I think this is probably this is one side of it. We're seeing payments being newly reinvented. I mentioned True Money, but we're also seeing the advent of buy now, pay later type of concepts, which already in some countries in Asia, in ASEAN is being placed. It's an 4 or 5 months fixed installment for any product or services. Australia is very big in that space. Afterpay, the company is called. We have Atomi in Singapore and others. I think Dolphin does it in Thailand, if I remember correctly. So I think they are these type of integration is probably between payment and some type of loan, supplier loans and consumer loans for marketplaces, for online platforms is critical. I think the other aspect there which changed is, and that's why I was talking about the industry integration, is really the advent of super apps. Whether we all like super apps or not is a different topic probably, but we can see though that with Line and we see Line, of course, we see Grab, and now also Shopee going down, being a marketplace player, now going down into probably a super portal, super app type of infrastructure, that they will have all sorts of services which retailers and also financial service companies have to somehow live with, because this is where the customer is, and we need to be where the customer is.
Great job in summarizing that. I mean, definitely it's very insightful. เมื่อกี้นี้ที่คุณ Axel พูดนะคะก็คือว่าแน่นอนนะคะเราก็ได้มีการพัฒนาในเรื่องของเทคโนโลยีในการเข้าอุตสาหกรรมการค้าปลีกนะคะสิ่งหนึ่งที่คุณ Axel เขาพูดถึงก็คือ digital business นะคะแล้วก็ AI และการจ่ายทีหลังค่ะหรือว่า pay later และรวมไปถึงsuper apps นะคะ Well, now if you get that and see that there has been progress made in that in terms of that, then how we then compare to overseas then, Kun Sulabh? How are things there? I know that for sure in the first session we talked about that a little bit with Kun Ray, how in the United States they're kind of just like already there. They've already progressed. So how is Thailand compared to overseas?
Yeah, no. So in many ways, no different at all, right? And in obviously in some critical ways there is a big difference. So I guess if we first talk about sort of customer preference or sort of the consumer side, right, which ultimately drives how retailers and how everyone else behaves, there is a shift, right? In the West, if you look at the US, Europe, for example, people are much more comfortable with e-commerce and online shopping. Of course, the pandemic has sort of kicked that into high gear for Southeast Asia as well. But there is still a big preference in Asia for what I would call social media retail, right? People are still very comfortable or actually seek that sort of peer-to-peer shopping experience. That touch point is really, that's not a medium of retail at all that's prevalent in the West, for example, right? The other big factor is the scale is much larger at times. So with that, we see, the advent of things like, robotics in warehouses, right? The scale of an Amazon simply mandates that the operations be much, much more streamlined. And that scale hasn't quite been reached yet, at least when I talk about Southeast Asia, China, etc. The scale is there. The third big factor, I think, is frankly, it's labor cost, right? I think that plays a huge role. Labor is much lower cost in Asia, so a lot of technologies that you would see in the West simply don't make sense for a retailer to invest in, because frankly, I could hire 2 people and get that job done at a lower cost. That does, unfortunately, at times come with lower efficiencies, right? But that is the nature of things. But I do want to stress that I think the ultimate, convergence is happening very quickly, right? We're seeing a lot of the digital technologies and a lot of the consumer preferences when it comes to online shopping, when it comes to the store, offline store look and feel and the experience. Honestly, I think we all expect the same thing, whether we're here or whether we're, elsewhere.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Oh, and by the way, during this conversation, either of you can step in and give your input as well. I'm just here. Sometimes I summarize in Thai, just for our viewers. But just a minute ago, คุณสุรัตน์ก็พูดถูกนะคะก็คือว่า overseas แล้วก็เห็นว่ามันอาจจะมีความแตกต่างในเรื่องของการใช้เทคโนโลยีซึ่งทาง EU แล้วก็ US อาจจะ approach คือเทคโนโลยีมากขึ้นถ้าเกิดเปรียบเทียบกับประเทศไทยหรือ Southeast Asia อาจจะเป็น social media ที่มีบทบาทมากขึ้นนะคะ I think that's really interesting when you talked about that in terms of social media playing a role, and it kind of reminded me with my conversation back just a minute ago with Kun Ray how the characteristic of the Southeast Asian market could differ in this, that we have a numerous amount of trade going online that may not be you could say like by the big guys, but something that is it's like an array of different retailers online right now, and do you think that is because maybe perhaps the consumer behavior clings to kind of or tends to follow others online, or why do you think we're seeing this difference?
Sorry, shall I?
Axel,
Go ahead,
I think
Axel.
you could go ahead, and then Sulabh.
Well, I would have thought is that in quite a few countries, what we see is actually both happening. There is a marketplace, which is multi-category as a retail operation, and which is comparable, let's say, to Amazon, and in Thailand, maybe we could look at Lazada and Shopee. But at the same time, we also see that there are specialty retailers, like say a one category retailer, and I'm thinking about Convi, for example, or Supersports is another good example, and they would be the best in their category, and from that perspective, they're also successful because we see this in Europe, by the way. In Germany, it's the same. I'm not so super familiar with the specialty retail in America. But in principle, if I want to have the best advice and product selection on tennis and have a pro consult me, then I go where that is, not where I have to sift through a million similar or same products, which I can't distinguish easily, which is one of the downsides in some of the marketplaces, right? So I think what I believe is that we'll see both of these trends continue. One is there is the super player, the marketplace, which probably slowly will evolve to a super app type of thing with multiple services integrated. And at the same time, we have the specialty retail, where there is advice, where there is, let's say, community, where there is insight, where there is maybe a certain, maybe even networking, who knows. I think these are probably two trends, and I believe in this advent, obviously social shopping is part of that. Actually, again, since COVID has definitely skyrocketed also in Thailand and this region, I think that this relates to the way very well how people operate. They go to a department store or they go to a specialty retailer because they have a certain need, right? So that relates to that.
คุณสุลับ
Yeah, no. So I think, look, so I can't claim to fully explain the psychology of why social shopping is more popular here, but I think there is maybe a difference that we still prefer that offline interact with a direct person experience, and since we can't get that in a store right now, at least social we see there's a person at the other side as opposed to a big .com or something. And I think that's an interesting challenge for e-commerce sites, right? Whether it's dedicated specialty e-commerce or the Lazada, Shopees, is how do they make the experience more personable, more customized to the shopper, offer some of those tools such as what chat with the pro or things of that nature. But I think that is clearly a question that e-commerce needs to address, which is how do we bring that personal touch, and there are several technologies we may get into that during the hour that are beginning to address that.
Definitely, I agree with you. Just wanted to remind our viewers, you can ask questions if you want during our session นะคะท่านสามารถป้อนคำถามได้ในแชทนะคะสำหรับสปีกเกอร์ของเราเป็นภาษาไทยภาษาอังกฤษอะไรก็ได้ค่ะ okay because there's a lot of things that we're going to cover, and our conversation has sparked another interesting thing that I've observed as well in terms of using technology in retail, and what Axel said that they will possibly go together with the big players and then the small players, and at this time it's very crucial for brands to kind of understand consumer behavior. And what I've observed is that some brands overseas are already trying to get through to the Thai market through influencers as well, which is something that you might not have seen in the past. For example, I was watching, I don't know why, but I think a lot of people are trying to think of camping or going outdoors or whatever. I was watching this YouTuber, a Thai YouTuber, talking about driving his Jeep and camping out and whatnot. And a product that was featured, that was sponsored in their channel was a power source or whatever. And that was a brand from overseas, which came into their channel to advertise to the Thai market. Do you see this kind of happening potentially in the future, where even though the pandemic has kind of stopped the globalization process so far, but perhaps maybe borders will be crossed by using technology and more analytics in consumer behavior? And this is towards anyone in the chat.
I think absolutely, right? Even today, for example, if you look on Lazada or Shopee, more than half the goods are actually not originated from Thailand, right? We tend to forget that Thailand, at 70 million population and a fairly developed economy, it's actually a pretty sizable market. So it's naturally an attractive place for any brand, any retailer to target. And I think what we're seeing really is the increase in global logistics and shipping that is allowing that to be possible, right? I think the interest in the brands, the interest in the products have always been there, right? We've always consumed foreign media and been attracted to brands from outside. It's the ease of shipping, those goods across borders. I think that makes it more possible now.
Okay.
Sorry, maybe to add is that I think Amazon, there are not many studies on this, but Amazon already today is a significant also online player in Thailand, right? It's just they're shipping from abroad, as Sulabh said. And I think we're seeing that e-commerce is a good example of brands from abroad who are trying with a very competent partner here to set up, let's say their brand.com environment, as it's called, to address the local market, maybe without having a big operation here, right? So this is already signed. We're seeing in the Middle East with Dubai Commerce City, actually a free trade zone just created for e-commerce for the Middle Eastern market, as an enabler for global brands to not actually import things into Dubai or the Middle East, but use the free trade zone as a stepping stone to have, let's say, literally real-time sales there. And I can see this model going for the big brands, for the global brands. I can see this model going much bigger than it might be today. And again, we probably have little data on it. Once taxation changes, we probably might have better insight in these type of things.
That's a totally different conversation there. And I could actually go on with that in terms of how Thai brands can take advantage of that as well,
Exactly.
and going to other ecosystems and entering other markets. But I have to keep on with our talking points for today. Maybe towards the end I can ask you that. Yes.
We are already seeing that actually. For example, on Taobao, which is one of China's big e-commerce sites, there are several Thai brands that are quite prominent, right? Miss Teen, for example, has a pretty sizable presence. I forget the seaweed company. They make the seaweed snacks.
That's right.
That's right. They've got a pretty sizable presence. Durian is a big hot seller in Chinese e-commerce sites. So we're already seeing that, and I think there's a lot of opportunity for Thai companies to explore that.
It just takes time for everyone to understand that technology. We're talking about the consumer behavior changing. How has it changed so far? I mean, I think this is going to be a relevant question that we're going to talk about on and on and on again, because it's ever changing. So as of now, how do you think consumer behavior has changed here in Thailand? Kun Axel?
Yeah, I think again, and I think you hit it on the nail on the head there, is that it is rapidly changing, and of course, COVID is part of that. In many ways, very negative ways. Of course, people suffering. On the other side, also, of course, people are at home, working from home, and they browse and they have a different behavior in shopping. Even if the stores are not closed, they still have a different behavior. Same as people saying that maybe there will be more work from home in the future. I think there's also going to be much more shopping from home because people got so used to it and it's part of their life. I think what we have seen is also from the data perspective that, and we said already, it started really with COVID on the personal touch, on the chat, on the actually even shopping TV is back. I thought QVC is gone.
I thought it was gone. No, but Sarah is back. But Sarah is back. Sarah กลับมา
Yeah, we are.
But wait, there's one more.
Cooking shows on Facebook. Yeah. We have it on Facebook, Shopee TV, right, and others. I mean, I don't know. Accenture does it probably. So there are many people do it. And I think this type of integration, and also from a technology point of view, it's important to realize. I mean, Sulabh, you said chatting with a pro. This is exactly where this is going, obviously, right? Because there is no point in chatting with a traditional contact center agent who probably is not so familiar with product categories, because that's not related to the model, right? It also has created a scene of entrepreneurs, let's say, in the smallest sense, who sell online, right? They hunt for certain promotions across globally and also in Thailand, of course. They use loyalty and this and that to get to buy products and then resell them on marketplaces and get often better pricing and good sales to it. What we also see is that consumers get around in a certain set of applications and digital services. So Netflix, we all know, Clubhouse, And then of course grocery services, we see it like Tops Online, for example, or Lotus. Then we see also investment from home is another category which has increased dramatically. So we see Sitmax, Bitcup being interesting. Of course, the banking services being interesting. We see food delivery. Of course, we all know it's driving the super app game in a sense, and feeds a part of the city. Do it yourself. Things like Home Pro. So there are a lot of apps. There's Zoom having a marketplace of apps now, of little apps you can write and integrate with. So I think there is a set of apps, and why is this important is because this is where the consumer is. So everyone else, they need to be with the consumer, right? Otherwise there's no point, right? So we need to make sure that we anchor around the digital all-stars and address this. And if anything, I would have said is this level of change and engagement is accelerating, meaning we're seeing much more of new channels, new ideas, both let's say traditional organizations, also banks, for example, like KTB and KBank are bringing out, same as retailers, online marketplaces, and people are using it and they're trying it out. And I think this is going to continue, and it means we all as organizations need to have our in-house capability to be able sometimes to copy, sometimes to innovate, but definitely keep developing capabilities, keep developing features at a rapid pace to keep being part of the customer.
Yeah, definitely. You can't stay still. Kun Sulabh, do you have anything to add on that, being from True Digital Group?
Yeah, no, so I think Axel frankly summarized it really well. But one thing that I guess just want to add to that maybe is, what behaviors I think consumers would expect even post COVID, right? Even when when we look at offline retail coming back, and so I'm a firm believer that offline retail will always have a place, right? I mean, I know people.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah,
No, I agree, because you will get into a place where you just want to go to a store. Sorry, keep going.
No, absolutely.
We all agree.
No, and I think shopping has always been about more than just I need a new shirt. Let me go get a shirt. Right? It has been an experience, and that's why you see the malls the way they are and the way the shops are decided. But what I think even offline will have to change now that consumers are so familiar and comfortable with online shopping, for example, right? And we'll see some of those technologies having to come into offline. For example, right? I think we talked about sort of chatting with a pro or chatting with the right rep. I think consumers will expect, even when they walk into a traditional store, that they have access to an expert or somebody, and that could be via video call, right? But no longer would it be okay that you just have 2 or 3 people who don't know anything about the product or the selection, right? Number 2, I think we expect inventory to be available, right? So I think consumers will expect that they walk into a store. Yes, they may not have that piece in the shop, but that the store could very easily ship it to your house, next day even, right? So, and then number 3, I think we'll see a lot more personalization come into the offline experience as well, right? Whether that is, the way the store is laid out, whether that is based on, what ads and promotions are being pushed to it via a digital screen, or whether that is, when the consumer actually pays in the loyalty scheme carrying over online to offline. But I think there are several dimensions even in offline that they will have to learn from the online world and make sure that we bring in, because consumer preferences will change permanently.
Yeah, definitely. I think yes.
No, sorry, just to add up to it, because it's actually offline personalization is an excellent term. I wish I would have said it. And I feel that online what happens is of course, you optimize the app by usage, right? People using it in a certain way, and then you take the data points and you keep improving it and testing ideas. And of course, with 5G, so I'm saying the word, with 5G technologies and better, smarter, faster ability to understand what happens in a store. Of course, you can also apply the same concepts in a store and then personalize the environment, let's say maybe not to an individual, but definitely to a group, and become more focused on creating more customer delight, and basing it on what you feel the customer expects and how they use your services, right? So it becomes a better lifestyle experience, which is what the mall is all around, of course, right? Not only the shopping, also the movie, the restaurants, the F&B outlets, supermarkets, whatever you have, exhibitions, whatever you might have there. And I think this combination of giving good experience to the customer and convenience, and using technology to understand what people don't like, how they award with their feet, so to speak, I think is critical and enabled now by a lot of new technologies.
I think that's like the key word. Yes, Sulabh?
No. So sorry, this is a topic that we're honestly, at least at True Digital, we're quite excited about and we're invested in. So I just wanted to share an interesting point, right? When you go to an e-commerce site, that every activity of yours is being tracked, right? So the retailer knows who is the person coming in, what are they searching for, what are they clicking on, what are they adding to their cart, what else are they adding to their cart, what are they deleting from their cart, etc. That whole journey is fully mapped out, right? And that really offers a lot of power to the retailer. Now you look in offline, it's amazing, right? What do we know? We know what the point of sales, receipts at the end of the day show, right? It's the disparity between what we know about the customer in e-commerce versus what we know about them in offline is significant. And I think that's where technology, is really going to come to play, right? We're, for example, deploying technologies today that count people, and they track, whether it's male, female, whether it's, it's a young person, whether it's an old person, how they're navigating through the store, what are they pausing to look at, and now we're beginning to get the insights that e-commerce gets at a click, is now available in the offline experience, which then goes back to allowing better store optimization, layout optimization, labor work. It's the whole gamut starts from knowing who your customers are and how they're shopping through the store.
Definitely. I think that the experience when we go back to the mall and we have that technology coming into play it's going to be different. And talking about 5G, I'm going to take the opportunity to go into our poll. Okay, so เดี๋ยวเราจะมีโพลคำถามเกี่ยวกับ 5G นะคะเพราะเมื่อกี้เราก็พูดถึงเนาะผู้บริโภคนะคะคือพฤติกรรมของผู้บริโภคที่เปลี่ยนไปแล้วก็ตอนนี้เราก็อยากจะพูดถึงเรื่อง 5G มากขึ้นค่ะว่าเทคโนโลยีจะมีบทบาทอย่างไรต่ออุตสาหกรรมค้าปลีกนะคะ While we wait for people to scan, okay สำหรับท่านผู้ชมที่อยากจะมีส่วนร่วมนะคะก็สามารถที่จะสแกน QR code ได้นะคะเพื่อที่จะเข้ามาตอบคำถามของเรานะคะเราอยากจะฟังความคิดเห็นของคุณนะคะ Thank you so much for the hearts, everyone. Just the first poll question. I didn't give a good opportunity for everyone to come in, so I'm going to give some time for everyone to scan the QR code now, because the first time I kind of didn't give that opportunity. But and there's also a link at the chat box for those who aren't able to join our poll นะคะสามารถคลิกลิงก์ได้นะคะที่ chat box ได้นะคะที่จะเข้ามาตอบคำถามของเราได้นะคะ While we wait for them ระหว่างที่เรารอให้ทุกคนสแกน QR code นะคะ I just wanted to further talk to you guys about that experience of what you said, like that term. I think that's really interesting. I said though, in terms of, and what Kun Sulabh said, Kun Axel said, that was personalized offline experience. I think one of the biggest challenges and exciting experiences for brands, I think, is now to navigate a way to have that balance between, offline, online, or O2O, right, guys?
It is a benefit at one side, and it is a complexity because each country, if you think about big brands, or think about Elan and Loft and others, once you are multi-country, it becomes also a challenge. How do you create, let's say, a similar experience in each market, because there are slight differences in them. And I see, however, a lot of the big also luxury brands, they're investing significantly. I mean, starting from topics like NFT, omni-channel apps. You look at Apple as being a good example. Also in Thailand, Apple stores, the on and offline experience, they do that extremely impressively. Even Starbucks, by the way, my favorite. Having
I don't want to thank you.
I have too much coffee. But seriously, right? You can order in the store, you can bring it to your home, and while you can always, it's easy to criticize, so hey, let's this do better, let's that do better. But what I see though is a lot of these things are complicated to manifest, and brands in all categories are going out and do it. So which is the exciting part, right?
Okay, I think we have to start now. The team is like, you've given them plenty of time. Okay, สำหรับคนที่อยากจะมีส่วนร่วมในโพลนะคะสามารถสแกน QR code ได้หรือว่าคลิก link below นะคะใน chat box. Okay, let's go to our first question in the poll. From your views, how can 5G technology benefit the retail sector นะคะจากมุมมองของคุณนะคะเทคโนโลยี 5G มีประโยชน์ต่อภาคการค้าปลีกอย่างไรนะคะก็จะมี choice ให้นะคะจะมีทั้ง digital media, augmented reality or AR, virtual reality, customer behavior prediction, interactive mobile apps, store automation, there's no difference from 4G technology. So you don't think that there's going to be any difference? I wonder who would say that. But not to be biased. Everyone is free to answer. Okay, so let's see what we have so far from the poll here. The majority customer behavior prediction. Yes, it's in line with what we talked about. Interactive mobile apps, and some saying digital media, and some saying AR. It's interesting, actually. I wanted to ask you guys a little bit before we go to ก่อนที่เราจะไปคำถามต่อไปนะมาคุยถึงเรื่องคำถามนี้ก่อนนิดนึงค่ะ What do you guys think about AR or augmented reality? I mean, the technology has got there. It's better, but I mean, are we going to have to put on glasses every time we go into a store or something, or is it going to be what we're seeing now, just more of an experience in store? And anyone?
I mean, having tried both of this to a certain degree, I'd say I can see AR that AR becomes applicable for retailers and also other industries for that matter, providing contextual information, but also games, of course, as is VR is there. I think AR is probably because of the lack of you don't need the glasses, then it makes it a bit easier to adopt. I think on VR, my personal opinion is the journey is still out. It needs a lot of speed to get high-end graphics, continued high-end streaming done, which needs to be calculated again in real time on the device. And 5G is one, and I think there's probably a little bit more to be done to get VR. AR though is something which I can see more rapidly. Now there is another segment there which we probably haven't talked about. It is the significant adoption of games, mobile games. So this is not gamification as in fairly simple browser-based games. Where you get a voucher out, but it's really we're talking about things like Nextplay, Invictus, or others. And I think here I fear that there are in Thailand, I think it's about 25 to 26 million gamers who daily use their games. Here I can see some of these components playing in, and that also becoming more as an integrator to retail, to again location-based games. and that will also need a significant amount of bandwidth, which then 5G is going to enable. There may be a few other items there which we shouldn't forget is like smart shelves, monitoring shelves. You have Amazon Go in your mind, where it's actually done by cameras. It knows what you grab and it credits it to your account. And I can see this becoming more relevant, more pervasive in stores as both the bandwidth and the technology becomes available at a price point.
Yeah, and one thing that's actually touched upon by AR VR, and it's not really on here is is IoT, right? Today, a major challenge with a lot of these technologies, if we talk about offline, for example, is the bandwidth simply doesn't exist through traditional technologies to transmit, for example, large amounts of data, video, what have you. And that ends up requiring pretty expensive, powerful systems to be deployed on each site, right? So that can get, frankly, uneconomical, where, if you have to start deploying thousands of dollars worth of servers and processor speed, at each store location, that's honestly not tenable. With 5G, you're getting communication speeds that rival the fastest broadband connections available. And now I can deploy a centralized system or go to the cloud, which is, obviously another very important technology development, and move away from having on-prem hardware, right? And I think that's going to be a key, key item technology that's going to allow a lot of these different tools to come into play, which currently, a lot of stores just cannot afford. But I think, and then of course, there's other items here when it comes to, how customers are able to do more because they have the connection speeds, how stores are able to do more because they have the connections.
Okay, all right, let's go to our last poll question. And that is, what extent do you think 5G will help the retail business in Thailand คะคุณคิดว่า 5G จะช่วยธุรกิจค้าปลีกในไทยได้มากน้อยแค่ไหน So you have most, somewhat, immediate, not much, or least. Oh, of course, most, for sure. Somewhat, 25%. It's interesting that no one said immediate. I guess it'll take some time, of course, as we've been talking about that. Do you guys agree with the results so far?
Yes, I would say, or still shaking out, I guess. I still say it's a bit more a time, right? A time question. Some of these investments, they're becoming more efficient, Sulabh suggested, and that helps a lot. I think I read a survey from CB Insights that in America, retailers alone expect an uplift of $12 billion with the introduction of 5G services, right? Just because there is productivity and savings, but also an upside to using these technologies in the mall. So for me, I'd say again, there's a long list of technologies. We talked about AR, VR games, real-time video. We talked about the video analytics in the store, understanding demographics, who's coming in and out, offline personalization, empty shelf detection, which is critical for retailers as well to understand what actually is the movement. Checkout. I mean, it goes on even telehealth or health, offline health with consumerization of health through both Samsung and Apple and their watches and their health devices. That should have impact on these services becoming more ubiquitous also in the malls is my guess. So there's a long list of items which I think it would happen. I think it's more a question of, because from a retailer point of view, there are a million things to do, and question for me is more what's time. I'd say it's probably take 18 to 24 months before we really see a massive impact, right? And some of it may be earlier. Let's see.
Okay, well,
it's really just one piece of the, I would just to add real quick, right? I mean, 5G is just one piece of the puzzle, right? It's the connectivity, but the other ecosystem around it, retailers developing those, great apps, those great features, adding the AR capabilities, et cetera, those also need to plug in. And these things do take some time.
Okay, so just trying to wrap up things. You spoke a little briefly about some of the leaders in the retail sectors being successful. Can you give us a little bit more about that? What are some of the players you're seeing right now in the market that are really capitalizing on integrating technology and data into their businesses?
Okay.
Anyone?
It'd be interesting actually to see you should have done a survey on that. I think that would be very interesting.
For us to know. Well, next time.
Next time. My impression is, I think in the US, I have seen significant investment from Target. I think they're being also seen as one of the very strong omni-channel retailers. Kroger is another one. Walmart as well, of course, but they also invest a huge amount of money into their technology strategy. They're doing well, of course. Closer to home, I feel, of course, maybe if I look at Singapore, we see Singapore Airlines actually, the Changi investment and related omni-channel features across the city, which they're tying up now. I think they're doing extremely well. Capital Mall. And then in Thailand, again, 7-Eleven, I mentioned it before. I dare not say Starbucks, but Sephora as a different name. Let me say Sephora. I think Sephora is doing a fantastic job. Virtual try-ons and so on. Again, 5G being critical here, and they do already a lot as in with color advisory online and so on.
All right.
And then, I could go on and on. There are actually many good examples.
I have to stop you now because we have to be on time. We are live on TV as we all both know. So I'm gonna let Kun Sulabh start with a closing question or the point here, and that is any last thoughts, okay, on what we've not talked about 5G and its role in the retail sector, Sulabh?
No, nothing really new. All I just wanted to say is, just to answer that last question, right? Rather than brands, it's a question of what are the best leading retailers doing, right? And I know everyone's heard this, but I cannot stress this enough, right? It's using the data you have, finding additional sources of data to collect, and then really bringing all of that into delivering that customer experience. Retail is all about, excellent customer experience. The polls have shown that. We've talked about it at length today, but how do you use the data you have, right? Use the POS data, use the customer loyalty points data, bring in new sources of data, and that is gold. And the best retailers are doing that better than others. That's how to win.
Okay, Axel?
Yeah, I think I think Sulabh is actually spot on. I think it's really the integration of points, the partnership framework, I would call it, which is emerging. I think is critical, and then focusing on providing unparalleled customer experience, because that will always win. And it's also the most difficult thing to make customers happy. But that should be the focus, not internal policies or divisions and departments. I think this is where the journey is to go.
Okay, thank you so much to both of you for giving us your time here. An hour is definitely a quite a long time, but it feels like it flew by because we definitely are hearing very good, innovative solutions from you two, and we look forward to hearing more from you in the future. Thank you so much ค่ะขอบคุณมากค่ะ โอเคค่ะแล้วก็ขอบคุณอีกทีนึงค่ะคุณ Axel Winter และคุณ Sulabh Dhanuka ค่ะสำหรับการแบ่งปันข้อมูลเกี่ยวกับการบูรณาการระบบ 5G ในการค้าปลีกของประเทศไทยณปัจจุบันและการแบ่งปัน case study ที่น่าสนใจต่างๆที่เกี่ยวข้องกับการพัฒนาในครั้งนี้นะคะสำหรับกิจกรรมดีๆจากทาง True 5G Tech Talk ในครั้งหน้านั้นนะคะเราก็จะมาแบ่งปันข่าวสารและสนทนาเกี่ยวกับอุตสาหกรรมการเกษตรนั่นเองค่ะที่กำลังถูกขับเคลื่อนโดย 5G ในหัวข้อครั้งถัดไปนะคะเราก็จะพูดถึง agriculture ค่ะมีผู้เชี่ยวชาญอย่าง David Farquhar CEO ของ Intelligent Growth Solutions ดร.มหิศร ว่องอาภาตินะคะ CEO ของบริษัท HG Robotics และคุณอารินพฤกษานุศักดิ์ค่ะ Agricultural Vertical Lead ของบริษัท True Digital Group รวมไปถึงคุณอุกฤษอุณหเลกะค่ะ The Co-founder and CEO of Recult โดยจะจัดในวันที่ 21 กันยายนนะคะ ท่านสามารถติดตามข้อมูลที่เกี่ยวข้องกับทอล์กของเราที่ Facebook Page Techsauce Thailand ได้ค่ะสำหรับวันนี้ดิฉันขอลาไปก่อนแล้วกันนะคะแล้วพบกันใหม่ใน True 5G Tech Talk sponsored by Huawei ASEAN Academy ในครั้งหน้าค่ะสวัสดีค่ะ
เมื่อ 5G มาช่วยพลิกโฉมอุตสาหกรรมไทยให้ก้าวล้ำไปกว่าใครมาร่วมติดอาวุธ SME สู่การเป็นผู้นำด้วยเทคโนโลยีที่งานสัมมนา 5G True 5G Tech Talk by Huawei ASEAN Academy ฟังคำแนะนำจากผู้เชี่ยวชาญทั้งไทยและต่างชาติจาก 6 วงการธุรกิจที่จะมาให้ความรู้สลับสับเปลี่ยนทุกเดือนร่วมเปิดมุมมองเพื่อยกระดับธุรกิจกับงานสัมมนาออนไลน์ครั้งยิ่งใหญ่แล้วมาสัมผัสเทคโนโลยีของจริงได้ที่งาน True 5G World Tech X มาร่วมสัมมนาออนไลน์ผ่าน True B Room หรือชมถ่ายทอดสดผ่าน True ID ช่อง ID Station ติดตามรายละเอียดที่ Facebook Techsauceเมื่อ 5G มาช่วยพลิกโฉมอุตสาหกรรมไทยให้ก้าวล้ำไปกว่าใครมาร่วมติดอาวุธ SME สู่การเป็นผู้นำด้วยเทคโนโลยีที่งานสัมมนา 5G True 5G Tech Talk by Huawei ASEAN Academy ฟังคำแนะนำจากผู้เชี่ยวชาญทั้งไทยและต่างชาติจาก 6 วงการธุรกิจที่จะมาให้ความรู้สลับสับเปลี่ยนทุกเดือนร่วมเปิดมุมมองเพื่อยกระดับธุรกิจกับงานสัมมนาออนไลน์ครั้งยิ่งใหญ่แล้วมาสัมผัสเทคโนโลยีของจริงได้ที่งาน True 5G World Tech X มาร่วมสัมมนาออนไลน์ผ่าน True B Room หรือชมถ่ายทอดสดผ่าน True ID ช่อง ID